Derek Ball.
It's a pleasure to rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak in the second reading of the Support for Children in a Hardship Bill. We'll be supporting this bill during this stage, sir. But I believe that the name or the title of the bill is a bit of a misnomer when it's concentrating on children, because in fact it's not. And a very fundamental reason why the benefits that the benefit increase has not been directed at the children at all. It's been directed at the families or the individuals within those families, and that opens itself up to a massive flaw from the get-go. If you've got a larger family, they get the children themselves individually get less of a benefit. So that's to start off with, sir. So it seems to me like this government brought in this legislation more for the point of wanting to hang their hat on the fact that they are the first government to increase the benefits for 43 odd years. Because every time a national member stands up, that's exactly what they say. But what they do not mention is the fact that in 1991, a national-led government slashed the benefits by around 25% or a third. And if we're looking at the most vulnerable, children in this country right now, it's not only those children that are in benefit income families, but also, in fact, the sole parent on benefits in those families. And if you actually have a look at the statistics, sir, from in 1990, a sole parent benefit was around 77% of the average wage. And if you have a look at year by year going down through to this year it's only around 50 or 51% of the average wage. So when you've got the government saying that we're the first government, in 43 years to increase the benefit, yes, but how much was it cut in 1991, and how much of the gap has spread since then? It is a token gesture at best, sir. And the minister actually said in her speech that the vast majority of submissions and people that came in actually agreed with the bill and the intent of the bill, and of course they did, because it's not necessarily that they agreed with the legislation or the intent, it's that they agreed that there is a need there and that they are desperate for that need, and of course they're going to take anything that they can, because that gap that they're in is really forced poverty, or supported poverty, like I said in my first reading. It is a supported poverty. This government is supporting currently people on the benefit, especially sole parent benefits, of being in poverty. This is actually an opportunity that the government has squandered to actually address child poverty directly, sir. And New Zealand First, when we hear the term child poverty, it actually is a little bit more than that, because every child that is in poverty is in a family that's in poverty. And on a bigger scale, if the family's in poverty, then the community itself, so it gets even bigger to a nationwide level of poverty. But that doesn't mean that every single individual within that nation is in poverty, sir, but the policies that are implemented at the national level do affect the poverty down at the other end. And at the moment, this legislation is just tapping at the symptoms of the issues of poverty that we have in this country. And at the very bottom are the sole parents, as I mentioned, sir. And this shouldn't really be a discussion or a justification of giving a handout to beneficiaries. But unfortunately, this is what it's become. We've got a justification of increasing benefits and why they need to increase benefits, and or why they shouldn't increase benefits, and we're doing a good thing by doing that in the first place. If it was about actually lifting children out of poverty, sir, it'll be a lot more comprehensive. There will be the amount that the benefit is increased will be a lot more than just $25. And of course, as we've heard, it's not actually $25, sir. It's a lot less than that, and it's not per child. It's not for the individual children. It is for the families. I'd just like to read a couple of points out of the minority report that was submitted that I'd like to make, and actually a state in there that the families with more than one child is where the hardship is likely to be more significant. And the Children's Commissioner himself actually said that the amount of about $12.50, for example, if there were two parents both on benefits, they'll be getting $12.50 each. It will not incentivise a parent to leave a benefit, given the high cost of quality childcare being a barrier. And one of those main barriers is that childcare costs, sir. And we've actually heard recently, I think there was an article within the last sort of week or two where this individual on a benefit did a calculation, and in fact they would be better off technically on a benefit rather than going and finding work because of all those hidden costs, because of the childcare, because of the petrol costs. And so this legislation, although we agree with the intent, just like every other submitter agrees with the intent of the bill, it's the way that the lack of robustness of the legislation that we disagree with, sir, and that lends itself to having flaws. We support the recommended change by the officials to amend the proposed definition of part-time work, being that it's retained for 15 hours for job seekers with sickness, injury or disability, sir. Alfred Naro looked at the regulatory impact statement, and I'll do the same. And there's a couple of things that I'd like to highlight out of it, and it's in the components of the final package itself. And it says that there are 108,000 beneficiaries that on average would gain around $23.10. And of course that's not beneficiaries themselves, it's actually the families, the entire families would gain that. But hidden right down the bottom in small print and fine print, literally, it says that there is actually an increase in the rent that social housing tenants receiving a benefit will pay. So the income-related rent charged to social housing tenants is set at 25% of their income, and their rent will actually increase by over $6, and that was in the fine print here. So if this bill and this legislation was actually a robust piece of legislation and wanting to fulfil the intent, then those sorts of things wouldn't occur. Across the page in the net impacts of the package, in fact, it states that concerningly, as a result of the benefit rate change, around 4,000 non-beneficiary households will see a small decrease in weekly income from the accommodation supplement. So, and in fact, it goes on to say that sole parent families will benefit more than couples from the benefit increase. So that actually proved itself a couple of things, sir. One, that although some individuals and families will have that increase and it's much needed, there are also families that will have a decrease because of this legislation. And not only that, but some families will benefit more and less depending on how many children that they have. And that actually points to the fact that this is not legislation that's aimed directly at the children, it's actually aimed at the main beneficiary themselves. Just looking at a couple of very quickly at the submitters, the Every Child Counts submitted something that was just a two-page document, sir, submission, but I've highlighted one of the main points that they've had, and it highlights the fact that this isn't a child poverty issue, this is a community and a family issue. And they recommended that there was along with this legislation, there was a sustained program of work across a range of areas. They noted that Maori and Pacifica are disproportionately represented in child poverty, that resources and support for community-led development needed to be included, that there needed to be adequate income, affordable housing, support for parents, and accessible and quality early childhood education. So there are a number of things that have been left out of this legislation, and right at the start, sir, I said that the government had a potential here to actually really have a good go at addressing child poverty, but it's been squandered a bit. But New Zealand First will support this legislation at this stage of the process, sir, and I'll be looking forward to having a go during the committee stage. Thank you.
Todd Miller.